Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I'm Gina, the host of this podcast. And today I'm going to let you listen in on a human design session that I had. This session took place in October of this year, so 2023. And I had this session with Jill Robinson from Soul Aligned Sisters. If that name sounds familiar, she joined me on episode 166. And if you're new to human design, new to any sort of conversation like this, episode 166, you might want to listen to it. We talk a little bit about like what is human design, how did Jill learn human design, and we also do a human design reading on me. And what you're going to listen to today, I've been questioning, like, I feel something shifting in me. I feel shifts within Past Lives in the Divine, the podcast, how I show up in the podcast, how people are listening to it, the episodes that are popular now versus what used to be popular. It's kind of interesting to see. Anyway, what I'm questioning is I'm feeling something new bubble up within me, but I feel like I don't have the capacity or the time to, I don't know, like honor it or decipher it or get more information about it so I can make some sort of plan. And in that change and shift that I'm feeling within me is Past Lives in the Divine. Like, I'm so thankful for this podcast. It's essentially gotten me the business that I have today. I still love the exploration of other lifetimes. I still use past life regression personally. Clearly, I'm still seeing clients. So I don't know. It's like both this weird feeling of like, I feel a shift coming and I still dig the work that I do. It's just, I'm wanting something different, but I don't know what that is. It's all very confusing, right? And I'm happy to wrestle like this because being an entrepreneur to me allows me a lot of freedom, which is the number one value in my life. So I also see Past Lives in the Divine. A lot of people look at my podcast and think that that is me. And while, yes, I am the host of this podcast and I am the one doing all the creating and publishing behind it, but it's not me. I really see Past Lives in the Divine as her own entity that I work with. So that is a real separation for me. So anytime I'm in relationship with someone or something like Past Lives in the Divine, this podcast, anytime I'm in relationship with someone or something that I love, that I've gotten gifts from, I just have a drive to understand it better, understand how we can be even more compatible and lift each other up more and honor like who we truly are. And so just feeling this shift with Past Lives in the Divine and feeling like we are in relationship, I wanted to do some sort of compatibility read. And because I've been on this human design kick and because of other conversations I've had with Jill about my manifesting generator profile or time bender profile, it's been very, very illuminating for me. So I wanted to go down that path. And that's what I'm sharing with you today is essentially kind of this synergistic read between Past Lives in the Divine and me. So what Jill did, or what she does, is she takes my birth date, time, location, and she takes the other entity's birth date, time, location. And so what I did was I felt like, to me, Past Lives in the Divine was really born on August 1st of 2019. And that is when episode 2 was published. And it was the first time I not only shared a past life regression publicly, but it was my own past life regression, my very first past life regression. So to me, that seemed like a really potent moment. So that's the moment that I took as like the birth of Past Lives in the Divine. So Jill took into account those two things, bringing our charts together, but then she also went into just my human design chart, and we talk about just kind of like personal power placements, whatever that means in human design, and then we also talked about just some different aspects of leadership, because to me those are very connected with like how I show up in my relationship with Past Lives in the Divine. Whether you want to do human design on yourself or kind of this compatibility synergistic read, I cannot recommend Jill enough. So she is a coach and a consultant focused on enhancing the human experience of those around her. And her gifts are really in helping others find their own power as creatives, and then to help kind of see those practical steps needed to make career or relationship changes. You can learn more about your unique human design. You can order a free human design chart or purchase a personalized chart from Soul Aligned Sisters. That's Jill's company with her sister. So you can work one-on-one with Jill. You can sign up for a human design assessment or do a coaching session. And you can find all of Jill's links in the show notes. I'm personally pretty new to human design. I've dabbled in it like really, really lightly over the last couple years. So if I was listening to this conversation, I would be like, gates, portals, what? So again, my hope in sharing this is that maybe if you're a little sneaky snoop like me, you want to hear the background story, go for it. You want to listen to this session. I'm happy to share it for entertainment purposes. But maybe if you struggle with some of the same things that I do, like a fear of failure, over caring, as Jill nicely put it, my hope is that, like me, when I can see these qualities from kind of a different angle or a different person's life perspective, it just kind of gives me more ideas on how to tackle it in my own life. And so that's my hope in sharing with this. Like, not only maybe you just like to listen in on someone else's human design session, but whether you know about human design or not, hopefully it can give you a different perspective on something else that you're dealing with if you deal with some of these same themes that I do around leadership and fear of failure and over caring about other people. Because all of those things for me are a key player in times when I feel burned out. And I think if you have been through burnout, a feeling of burnout, whatever that means to you, it's like a fucking awful time in our lives. And it's like, if I can do anything to avoid that, I'm going to. And I know that like my feelings of like over caring, over giving, fear of failure really contribute to this depletion that adds to feelings of burnout in my life. So again, I just love to live with intention and an understanding of how I operate over just kind of like automatic, default into this programming that I've acquired since I was a child. And not that that's anyone's fault or anything like that. It's just like how we deal with life, right? Like we pick up coping mechanisms in childhood, and oftentimes, thankfully, they're not worthy or applicable in our lives as an adult. And so to continue to undo that, see these issues from different angles, hear different ways to go through them, it really, really does make a difference in my life. I feel that for sure. Two things I want to mention though before we get into the recording of that session. Kinship registration for my membership group for 2024. It's an annual membership. Kinship registration, it's open. Will you please join me? If you go to pastlivesinthedivine.com, click on work with me, click on kinship. It's also linked in the show notes. You can see the different monthly hypnotic journeys that we're going to go on. And it really is designed for you to experience a group hypnotic journey, learn something about yourself, experience another lifetime, learn a new way of being, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And then we come together in kinship for a kinship only discussion once a month, and we talk about that. And I will tell you that meeting is the highlight of my month every month. And I would love to have you there. So go over there, join kinship. Let me know, Gina at pastlivesinthedivine.com. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them for you. There's a payment plan. There are free workshops, all of those things available if you sign up in the month of December. The second thing I want to talk about, registration for the Hypnotic Arts Training. Our first cohort that we're running in 2024 has just opened. So go to thehypnoticartstraining.com. You can click the link in the show notes. You can also go to pastlivesinthedivine.com, click on work with me, click on the Hypnotic Arts Training, and you can learn more about that. We just recorded a question and answer session. So any We have just basic information about the training. We have questions that we received from people who were live, people who had written in beforehand who couldn't attend live. But if you go to the hypnoticartstraining.com, you can actually watch that Q&A video and learn more about the training. So if you like past lives in the divine, if you would love to understand how to facilitate these sessions on your own, where you could maybe even add it to something, a service that you're already providing. Maybe you just want to learn how to do it because you're just looking to learn something new. We would love to have you in the Hypnotic Arts training. So make sure to check that out. Registration is open and there are only 12 spots in that training, and we are about half full. So we should have that filled up in the next month or so, but we would love to have you there. Okay, are you ready? Gather around the fire for this session. Compatibility between past lives and the divine and me.
Okay, I was preparing for this yesterday and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like, I can't wait to share, especially the chart with past lives and the divine. I'm like super excited to share it with you. It's
Okay,
so
cool.
crazy. It's like you can't even make it up. But so you wanted to talk about past lives and the divine and sort of where it's going and kind of where you're at with it. So your superpower we talk about, and I think I mentioned this to you, as your conscious sun placement in your chart, which is this over here. It's gate
Okay.
50. This is sort of like your most prevalent energy. This is the biggest part of your personality. This is sort of what you are here to share with the world. I think I would say your unconscious sun, which is here in the red, is also an important part of that, but that's not, it's a little more veiled, although for you it's not super veiled because gate 56 is the gate of the storyteller. So that's not really veiled for you. But when we're talking about the superpower, we're really talking about your kind of forefront way of being in the world, and that is gate 50, which is here off the spleen center right here.
Okay.
And this is the gate of nurturing. So this is really energy of sort of taking care of the community. It's in the like circuitry of the chart, it's tribal energy. I don't really like to use that word. I think of it more of community energy. But it's really about the people who are around you. It's not like individual really in nature. It's like the close knit group around you. Gate 50 holds like laws and values and moral codes and things like that. It's like, how do we keep the community together and healthy, and what rules and norms need to be in place for the well-being of the community. But it transmits all those values through love. It really is sort of a mothering type of energy. And so sometimes it can be really soft and nurturing, and sometimes it can be a little bit more like, hey, like, you're not going the right way here, but it really is overall about caretaking. It's instinctual in nature, and so it feels like a instinctual like need to take care of the people around you. But there are some challenges with it. So because it's in the spleen center, and the spleen center has this like shadow of fear, it's where we kind of hold some fear. The fear that's associated with gate 50 is the fear of failing in your responsibilities, that like,
oh God,
you won't show up, you won't do what you're supposed to do for the community, for the people, for your family, for whoever is closely connected to you, that if you don't show up and do the caretaking and you're not like providing and doing all these things, that somehow you have failed in your responsibility to the people around you.
Yeah, I would say I isolate a lot because of fear of failing. And it's like, if I can fail alone, that to me is so much better than failing in front of people, failing someone else, failing with someone. I feel that.
I
Yeah.
mean, and this isn't, you have 4 gates in this that are defined in your spleen center, and each of these has an associated fear. So, gate 57 is the fear of the future, because it's like the most like intuitive gate in human design, the shadow side of that is the fear of like what's going to happen. Right. We talked about gate 50 being the fear of the responsibility of failing in responsibilities. Gate 32, I'm remembering this. I don't have it written down in front of me, but gate 32, I believe, is fear associated with like your ideas won't work. And that's what I feel like what you're kind of articulating
Yes.
is like, it almost is like, I don't want to try it unless I know it's going to work, because if it doesn't work, then like, what was it all for? And like, I'll be embarrassed or whatever. And same thing with 18. 18 is I think 18 is the gate of struggle. And the fear around that is like that it's not worth it, but like the effort that you put forward isn't worth it. Right. So all of these things can come up, and they're normal. They're a normal part of, the spleen center operation. And it's just a matter of working through it, right? Because the spleen center is really about the energy is for like survival and timing and intuition. And so when you think about survival, like the fear that we feel, like it might feel like it's a survival thing, right? Like our body interprets it as like, if I do this and it doesn't go the way I expect, then I actually might die, or I might be like cast out and alone, and then I will die. Right. Like
Yeah.
it is really a survival instinct, but that's not actually true. Right. Like if your idea fails, like it's not true that you're going to die from that.
Right.
So it's about sort of,
Unfortunately.
right.
Fortunately, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's about kind of like pushing forward despite the fear. But when it comes to specifically gate 50 and this caretaking energy that you have, it can also be like over caring, caring too much, caring
Yeah.
for people who really shouldn't be cared for, caring out of guilt, especially because you have an open emotional solar plexus, which is here.
Yeah.
This means that you are bringing in the emotional energy of other people around you, and you're amplifying it. So whatever they feel, you're going to feel it even more. And
Oof.
so if you saying like, no, I'm going to put a boundary here, and this is where my caretaking stops, and you need to be accountable for yourself and whatever, there may be some guilt there that is born from like, well, they might have a bad reaction. And so like, I want to avoid those uncomfortable feelings with them. And I'm just going to do it anyway. So those are
Yeah.
some of the challenges. And, you know, it's okay to do that. Like, it's okay to overcare sometimes. It's okay to like care out of guilt sometimes if that is what feels best for you, but you will burn out. That is not, making sure that you are listening to yourself about who to care for, when to care, how long to care for someone, or how to engage in the caretaking for the people that you are associated with, who are in your community. You should use your sacral, like your gut feeling, your gut response, your gut yes or no, to determine, how to do that. So talk to me. I'm gonna pause my share for a second so I can see your face. Big.
Oh.
So tell me, what sticks out there for you?
For sure, what I wrote down was like I said, I isolate in like fear of failure for sure. Um, and then in that is like not asking for help, everything that comes with that. But like just the idea of like the fear of the future, which was an interesting way to put that because I wouldn't have described it like that. But when you say my ideas won't work, it's not worth it, for sure, 100%. I see that. And I not only see that and have been aware of it on some level, but I feel like the last like 6 weeks has been this real uncovering of like how much I truly want not how much, but like what I truly want in relationship, in my work, and how it's almost like, wow, I've always wanted that. But it was like this part of me that was like, no. I mean, even as a podcast host, I've hired coaches before and they'll be like, you need to pitch and be on other podcasts. Obviously, that's a great way to like get in front of people who might like your podcast if you're talking on similar podcasts. But in the past, it's been like literal, like this nauseous feeling when I try to do it, all of that stuff. But now I kind of feel like that has sloughed off, and I'm kind of in this space of like, wow, I can see how those fears have really held me back.
Mm,
And for whatever reason, the therapy, the hypnosis, whatever I'm doing, I'm also starting to see like that fear. It's like a wave that's receding, where
mm-hmm.
before it would be like, okay, I'm only going to pitch podcasts that are my size in my realm. And now I'm just like, fuck all of that. I'm going to pitch whoever the fuck I want to have a conversation with. I don't care how big your podcast is. And if your podcast is big, maybe I'll fucking send you an email every week. Like, I just am like, don't care. So like that's a good turnaround, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
been painful to
Mm-hmm.
be like, wow, I see how much that has held me back in the past
Yeah.
for sure. So hearing that, I'm like, and then just the idea of like checking in with that, like even like if I am giving too much to someone or something, to feel that. And I
Mm-hmm.
can feel it. Like I can feel it more now than ever. And to be able to like, again, Gina, check in with that sacral response of like,
Mm-hmm.
and like let that guide me like in that moment. And maybe even what's coming in right now, I'll say this and then you can tell me if there's a better way. But it's almost like when I feel these feelings of like kind of resentment or guilt or fear, the to let that be my signal to be like, wait, what's going on here? Is
Mm-hmm.
this right for me?
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the emotional reaction is a flag, right? Like, because it's easy when like your body is saying giving you the yes signals, like excitement and things like that. Like we all know what that feels like. But sometimes the feelings that we get are not comfortable feelings like you've described. It doesn't mean that actually there it's not a yes. Like it could still be a yes, right? But you have to try to uncover like why is that happening, and what is it that I need here?
Yeah.
What is my body trying to help me understand about the situation? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a no. It might just mean like I'm afraid and this I'm on the growth edge here and I'm pushing up against what I believe is possible for me, or I'm going to take this leap of faith and it feels scary. And so that can give you all kinds of like bad feelings, but it
Yep.
doesn't mean that it's yeah. So I think you're dead on there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Ah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I would say too, like the thing about the caretaker energy is like, I don't know how you think about this with yourself, but it's not just about like individual caretaking. I think it's also an energy that you present to like the people in your community, right? Your podcast listeners, the people that you're working with. Like I think that it is a bigger sort of thing where you are like in any space that you're showing up, whether you know people or not, you bring this energy of like these are kind of the rules of the road, and this is kind of like how we're all going to get along, and this is like it's kind of serving in that role to make sure everyone is sort of nourished and has the things that they need. That is a gift that you bring, maybe without even knowing it, but it is something that is unique to you and is special about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that.
Oh, good.
I really feel that in kinship.
That's the superpower. I didn't have an intention to really talk about your incarnation cross, but it kind of is a combination. It's like it bridges us into leadership, I think. And
Okay.
so the incarnation cross is made up of the top four numbers in your chart. This is your overarching life purpose. And so your overarching life purpose is the right angle cross of laws 3. That's what it's called. Essentially, like depending on who you go and like read, there are different interpretations of the incarnation cross, and that's because each of the gates sort of combine to make up its own unique energy, and depending on who you're reading, they might have different interpretations of the different gates and such. So
Okay.
So, like hopefully what I have chosen resonates for you. But if not, like go look at, go look it up, go see what you
Okay.
can find on it. But the overarching life purpose of laws 3 is really about bringing in new possibilities to the world by building on what works. So that's coming from like this like 360 energy here,
Okay.
which you have gate 3 here and gate 60 here. This really wants to like evolve, but in a kind of deliberate manner. And so it's about not like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but like picking and choosing the things that are working and like evolving them forward so that like we can bring new possibilities into the world.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's also about using storytelling to shift mindsets towards greater value, well-being, and support for everyone. So the storytelling we talked about, that's gate 56, is using like the narrative to help people to see greater possibilities for them, how to rewrite narratives and things like that. And you, with that combination of the caretaker energy and gate 50, like it's really about like how do we make things better for like our group, right?
Yeah.
How can we better support people? How can we have people feel better about who they are and what they bring to the table? And we can do that. And you in particular will do that through storytelling. Like
Oh.
that's a big part of it. This energy is also mutative. It is not about like necessarily like following all the laws, following all the rules and norms. It is also about which ones should be broken, what should be rewritten, what doesn't work for us anymore, what doesn't work for this group. So like you have the transmission of values and like norms and laws and rules for the community, like, through that gate 50, but it's also about like what doesn't work and what doesn't make sense. And like I think about when I think about this for you, I think about the relationship that you have with your ex-husband and the way
Ooh.
in which that had like that, like, and you like telling a story, through your podcast about how you have navigated, your relationship with Alex and where it is now. And like that being like a new possibility for people that maybe they hadn't considered, that a
Yeah.
relationship of that in that way, even though it's different than what people expect, is actually possible.
Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that. I would say my relationship with Alex and like how we have finessed and weathered that in integrity and respect is like one of the things I'm most proud of for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it is something that I'm like, it is like I've told you, I'm craving a change or whatever. And just having more conversations like that, not necessarily like everybody should live their life like me, but more
No.
so like I feel like I have a pretty interesting life and I like to talk about it and I'm a deep thinker. And like that relationship in particular, I feel like it's something like it feels good to hear. It's a feel good story. I feel like up at least to this point. And I do think that a lot of times people just think you're either married or you're divorced plus drama and bullshit. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it does not have to be that way. So I'm glad you
Or
highlighted that because I wasn't even thinking of that.
even like separation, right? Like even maybe there's
Yeah.
no drama, but like the relationship ends and you have no relationship after that. Or like
Yeah.
you co-parent, or you have like a limited
Yeah.
interaction that's healthy and fine, but like, I think like this is like that example is exactly what we're talking about here about your purpose.
Okay, cool.
Like that is one way it is. I think it shows up to me as what I can see, because it does set an example for the people who are closely connected to you. And like, he is closely connected to you, right? He
Yeah.
is part of your group. He is part of your family. He's part of your
Yeah.
community. And for you to say, well, like this is in the past or in other situations, like it may be that like we separate and he's no longer part of the group because he can't be here anymore because we don't have the same relationship. You've said that's not how we're doing it. That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense for our community, for our group, for our family, for my little, for my group of people, for my tribe, that is not a rule that's not how we roll.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is it's relationship oriented, and it's about living by example, serving as a role model, like how you show up in the world, tells other people how they can show up in the world too. So this is
Yeah.
your kind of like some of the elements of your overarching life purpose.
Okay.
So this takes us into leadership, and the reason it's kind of like bridging here. So before I get into this, I hope that you can see like what we just talked about, the right angle cross of loss 3 year incarnation cross, being leadership energy, like being like
Yeah.
how you like can show a way that's different. But before we get into this, I'm going to pause my share for a second. I just want to talk to you a little bit about, because I feel like I've heard a little bit from you that leadership is a little bit of a weird thing for you, like maybe you're unsure about it. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about where you're at with that. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts around leadership? What's holding you back around leadership, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think well, there's definitely flavors of like the whole failing.
Hmm.
To me, it seems easier to fail alone than like fail with a group of people or like fail
Hmm.
while I'm leading people. Oh boy.
Yeah.
So that for
Hmm.
sure. I believe this is my personal belief of what is true based on like my life experience and all of the clients that I've taken through hypnotic journeys and transcendental experiences, is that at the heart of what we all want is like love and belonging.
Hmm.
And as much as I hate that, it's true for me too.
Hmm.
And I see what has been revealed to me, like in the last few months or year or whatever, is that I feel that way. That's true for me too. And I see leadership as a source of isolation. And it's just because of I'm someone who grabs more onto criticism than praise, or it sticks in my brain. And so oftentimes, even like in kinship or with repeat clients, it's like, it's such a deep personal level that like, it's pretty easy for me to be like, whoa, this is a really cool person. Like I wouldn't mind hanging out with them more, seeing them more, whatever. Um, and just like in those times when like that relationship has maybe progressed toward friendship, it's like a lot of people carry this energy where it's like it's maybe what they say or how they say it, or they'll say something that illuminates a point of view. We can tell a lot by someone. We can tell a lot when someone asks a question. It's like so blatantly clear what their beliefs are,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
and so to me, it's almost like most people who are attracted to me also because they're listening to me on a podcast put me on some kind of pedestal. I get it. Like I have a lot of internet heroes. I love writers. I love quirky hikers, through hikers. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I get it. But when that belief doesn't stop, I can feel it when we interact. And it's
Hmm.
so isolating and it's so disappointing because when someone puts me up on a pedestal, it's like, I'll tell you right now, I'm way too sexually, I smoke way too much pot. I swear even more than you think. I am way nastier on the inside of my brain than you think. So if I am on a pedestal, when do I fall off and when do you start abusing me because of it? So,
Yeah.
so it's like I have kind of unraveled all of this in the last few years. And so essentially it's like I want love and belonging, which is hard for me to admit. And I see leadership as a source of isolation. So it's like I have to get rid of that belief in order for me to fully step into leadership. Like I want to believe that I can step into leadership while holding that belief and waiting for someone to come and undo that belief. But that's not how my life works. Maybe it'll
Hmm.
work like that. It's never worked like that. It's like I
Hmm.
have to believe it. I have to step into it. And then other people start to do it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see
I
it as
mean,
almost like a block right now.
that's like manifestation 101, right? Like
Sure.
your
Yes.
own like belief system is what attracts you the experiences that you want to have or don't want to have, but are having anyway because your belief system is guiding that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So let me share this slide out with you.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot actually in your chart that tells me about your leadership capabilities, that tells me that you're here to be a leader, that tells me that you're going to be leading whether you want to or not, and it doesn't matter what you think about it. That's how you
Oh,
design
I feel
yourself.
that. Holy shit, I feel that. Yeah.
Like, just get comfortable with it because
Yeah.
it's not going to change. So the we talked about the writing across of laws. I hope that you can kind of see the leadership
Mhm.
element in there. Again, your profile is your personality traits and characteristics. We talk about as soul purpose and life purpose, and yours is a 4-6. It's a stabilizer adept. So you are creating secure foundations for people through relationship. So your ability to build relationship and to build connections provides a safe and secure foundation for the people around you and for yourself, but also for the people who you're building these relationships with. And whether you want to like admit it, acknowledge it or not, like that 6th line is a role model line. It's called the adept in quantum human design, but role model in traditional human design. People will look at you as an example. It does not matter if you're
Yeah.
like, and I'm a 6 too. And so my journey with the 6th line, in kind of understanding it is like, I can look back in my life and see instances in which people were holding me to as some sort of standard bearer for some way of being. And then like, I didn't know that. I wasn't trying to do that. I was just being who I was, but they attached that onto me. And
Yes.
and it caused pain for me. It did. It was difficult. And I didn't see that in myself. And so now I'm like, well, now I kind of get it. And now I'm like, I'm going to live into it a little bit more because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So like, whether or not people like you want to serve as an example, you are serving as an example. And it's not about what you do or like how good you are at your job or like what kind of podcaster you are. It's about how you live your life. It's how you carry
Mhm.
when like I can say, when I first met you, in Hocking Hills, like I saw that in you. I'm like, damn, like I don't know anything about like all the stuff that you have going on in your life and all that kind of stuff, but the way in which you carry yourself and like the lightness that you bring and like the sense of like adventure and like chill and like like
Oh,
peace that you like kind of exude. I'm like, damn, I want that in my life. Like how did she do that? How do I get that for myself? That's a good example of how it shows up for people. Does that make
okay.
sense for you?
Oh, it totally does. Thank you for, first of all, it's very kind thing to say to me. And of course, I love hearing that reflected back. But I do feel that. I can't like literally every job I take, I feel like I'm put in this role model position, even
Mm-hmm.
when and it's never been my intention. I can't,
Yes.
like, of course, at some point, as a coach, as a consultant, as a
Mm-hmm.
hypnotist, as a whatever
Mm-hmm.
teacher, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm stepping into those roles, but it's almost like there's this part of me that like can't help but take those roles and be
Yeah.
that. And then there's another part of me that's like, God damn, why am I in this role again? you know? But
Oh my God.
to
Yeah.
like you said, to like, I don't know how you said it, but essentially you were like, now that I know this, now I can lean into it.
Yeah.
And
Lean
when
into
there's
it.
a fallout, like it doesn't necessarily mean it's me. There's like
No.
other people and their
Right.
perspectives and their
Right.
truth. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's funny that you talk about like how did I get into that position? My boss and I used to joke about when we were like in the like throes of like the horrible toxic environment. We would talk about like daydreaming about like getting a job at the mall. And then we would laugh because we would say both of us within like 2 months would be like the assistant manager because we can't not. It's like people are
God
like, yeah,
damn.
you're good at this. So like you're counting the money and now you're doing payroll and like you're like, I just want a fucking job at the mall, man. Like I didn't sign up for this.
God damn, I feel that.
Yes. Okay, so your north node is here. You have your conscious north node, which is the like latter half of your life, kind of the overarching theme for the second half of your life is in gate 7. And this is definitely a leadership gate. This is in quantum human design, Karen calls it the gate of collaboration. It has a feeling of democratic leadership. So it's you like you've been chosen, and you just articulated this, like you're chosen by the
Hmm.
group, whether you like are running for office or not, like you are chosen to sort of be the person who leads. And it really is about it's not so much like president energy as it is like chief of staff energy. It's like the
Ooh.
ability to sort of like, yeah, you are a leader, but it's more so about influencing like the like figurehead of leadership, if you will. It's like through collaboration and through like, you know, the connections that you build with people, like they've sort of selected you as like the person who's like, okay, bring our idea forward and help us like get this into motion. So it isn't like you're not a dictator in any way,
No.
and people don't see you as that, and that's not the role you are playing, but you are the person who they're going to choose to kind of lead the group, because you're just so naturally good at that, and that's your north node. So you know, that's the second half of your life is what you're looking at there.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so you also have this channel here, 2145. This is a channel of sustainable resources. But the reason I wanted to highlight this for you is because this does have like kind of like king queen energy in the gate 45 up here. But gate 21 is where like is the treasurer, is where the resources are held. And so like that can also give you this feeling of leadership of like, how do you sustain resources for the group? Like, how do you, you know, all of this kind of goes back to caretaking
Mm.
energy too, right? It's like, how do we take care of the people in the group? How do I lead us through, you know, whatever we're going through in a way that is sustainable, in a way that shares, in a way that takes care of people, in a way that is good for everyone involved, you know, that's there too.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so those are a couple of the, you know, gates that are specifically associated around leadership. And then there's like two other things I want to talk about with leadership. One is the defined will center, which is here. Actually, like I think it's like 7/8 of people have this undefined or white. You
Oh.
and I actually also have this defined. So we're rare in that sense. And the will center is where we hold like value, worth, resources, things like that, willpower. And when it's defined, like you're here to talk about yourself, you're here to share your experience. I mean, a lot of times I feel like we're told, you know, well, don't talk too much about yourself, especially as a woman, right? That
Totally.
there's something
Yeah.
wrong with like talking about you, or maybe like you know, I do this all the time. The way that I relate to people is when they're sharing a story, I often like reflect back with my own experience. And like there are
Hmm.
times when I feel like really funny about that. Like I shouldn't do that. Like I'm making it about me. But the truth is like
Same.
we're supposed to be sharing about ourselves. We're supposed to talk about ourselves. So that's part of, I think, leadership is like sharing your own story, sharing who you are.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. And then the undefined identity center, like this is a big one, and you've already talked about it. So this is I also have this and this has been a huge, like we have lots of similarities. Um
I believe it.
yes. This has been a really like difficult path for me, and learning about this in my human design really helped me to transform how I think about it and my perception. So when you have an open identity center or undefined, it's white, it means that may not have like a true consistent sense of self. So what do I mean by that? Like a lot of times people with an open identity center will feel as though they don't really know who they are, because depending on who they're with, they might shift and change a little bit. It kind of has this like chameleon nature to it, this
Yeah.
ability to sort of um, mirror the different people, right? To kind of change yourself and morph yourself, not totally, maybe sometimes it's totally, but like just to like sort of shift and change a little bit to be able to connect with different types of people.
Hmm.
But I think the kind of challenge that's associated with that is this like feeling like I never really like fit. I don't know who I fit with.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Like, so even if you're in a group that loves and adores you, there's still this feeling of like, I don't totally fit here. Like, I don't feel completely like I am myself here. And so there is this like, the kind of conditioned part that's like a struggle to feel loved and accepted.
Uh-huh.
That is part of the, you know, I don't, not shadow, the challenge of it.
Damn, you isolating that out is so makes that so clear to me of like
Hmm.
it's just the shadow side, the ability to um because I'm not faking it. Like when I hang out with someone who's completely different than who I hung out with 2 days ago or a week ago or whatever, it's not that I'm not that person. It's just like I'm not like certain types of my personality just aren't bringing out. But
Yes.
I take that as if this person knew me fully, they wouldn't
Hmm.
love me. And it's like,
Hmm.
that's not necessarily true.
Hmm.
And to me now it's just like, oh, that's just the shadow side of being able to be a chameleon. And
Hmm.
not, and I used to think of it as like this part of myself I needed to shut off and stop doing and just show up. And that proved impossible. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like that was like my ages 33 to
Hmm.
38. I was like really trying to do that. Um, in an effort to be like, I want people to see me so I can like feel like they actually love me because they really do know me. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
do we ever really know anybody?
Hmm.
And I'm lovable, even if
Hmm.
someone can say, I love you in this realm. You make me a little nervous in this realm, and they can still love me and like me. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't necessarily mean if they're
Hmm.
not in love with me 24 fucking 7 that I'm not worthy or shouldn't be leading or whatever.
Hmm.
So that is a good shift in mindset for me for sure. Cause I used to think of that as something I had to get over and then just kind of gave up on it. But now it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's always going to be there. It's just like the
Yes.
shadow side of it's just the other side of the coin.
It is. It's just the other side of the coin. And I think having the knowledge of how this is working, that this is part of your energy, um, because we talk about like the open centers being the places where we can be most conditioned, where like we're taking on other people's stuff and we
Oh,
don't realize it. Like we identify with it as if it's our own, but it isn't. But the gift that's associated with that is that you, and especially with the identity center, is that you like are very knowledgeable and have a lot of experience with lots of different types of people in different way, you know, walks of life. And
totally.
the beauty in that and the gift that you have to share is your ability to like morph and change yourself to meet people where they're at. So it's less about, I think, you know, the shift that can be made once you start to understand this and like internalize it is that it's less about me fitting and it's more about connection. It's more about, it's not about me fitting in with anybody. It's about me showing up in a way that allows the person who I'm connecting to feel connected to me.
Oh my God. It's not about fitting in, it's about connection.
Hmm. And it's
Jill.
about them. It's not about me, because now I can be at the place where I'm like, well, I do love and accept myself and I am lovable and that I'm unconditionally loved and I can be any kind of way. And these are just slices of my personality that I can bring to the front, you know, to the forefront in any interaction that allows me to deepen a connection with the person that's across from me.
Ah, holy moly.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn. I feel like that is like, well, all of this has been very informative and illuminating, but I feel like that is kind of like this like hidden corner, like this hidden little burr that I didn't, it was like I could feel it there. And it's like, what
Mm-hmm.
is this that's like blocking me? But I feel like that is a big part of like what blocks me in leadership is this, yeah, kind of
Mm-hmm.
just all of that, what we talked
Yeah.
about. So that was
Yeah.
very illuminating.
Good. Yeah. Your authenticity is being all of the things. Like, being authentic for you is showing up in a way that connects to people, and that might mean changing yourself a little bit to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But that is authentic for you. That is an authentic expression for you.
Yeah. That's really okay. Cool.
So you told me when you requested this that you weren't sure where it was going. You thought maybe it needed to come to an end. You're trying to figure out whether that's right for you or not to bring it to an end. Um, is there anything else you want to share about that before we get into this? Or you want to
No,
just hear what I
I'm
have to say?
still right there. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
still like, I think I have an idea, at least what I'm going to do for 2024 while I like sit on it more, but
Mm-hmm.
I still feel kind of like confused about it for sure.
Okay. Okay, so this is your composite chart, what you're looking at here. So you're over here. This is your chart. And then the past lives and the divine chart is here. So when we overlay them together, this is what it looks like.
Okay.
And what's super, I mean, again, you cannot make this up. What's super interesting about the overlay, like the composite chart, is that it gives you a chart, like the combination of your two energies creates an experience where all of the energy centers are defined, meaning they're pushing out. And so they call that in human design terminology, they call that 9 and 0, nowhere to go, which basically what they're alluding to is like there is a magnetic connection that ties you together very closely. Like a third person is going to feel like a third wheel in this situation because the energy is so complementary and attracted. And so I wrote at the bottom, you complete me. Because the feeling would be that like when you are operating in your business or in with past lives in the divine, that you're like basically pushing all your energy out. So even the places like your identity center that feels like a little wonky at times when you're in your personal relationships, when you're in your business, that might feel more solid. You might have a more solid sense of self. That's something that your business
Yeah.
can offer to you. Does that resonate for you as far as like
Yeah.
how you guys, I talk about it like it's a person, it's not, but like that's sort of
Well,
how I look at it.
I do see past lives in the divine as like an entity that I
Entity.
work with for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like I'm usually having to be like, and I'm in charge, okay? So it's fucking settle down. Is the
Honestly, like
energy between us.
that I can totally see that. Like that makes complete sense to me. So let me see. So okay, so this is the chart itself for past lives
Okay.
in the divine. And there is a lot of definition here, but you can see it also has an open spleen and an open emotional solar plexus, but the rest of it is all colored in, which means
Yeah,
this is what
damn.
it's here to share, that its own energy out into the world. Like you, it is a time bender, a manifesting generator. So you have a similar like energy flow and how you kind of create in the world. Your authority, your strategy and authority are the same. The profile, which is like the personality traits, is a 2-4 responder stabilizer. So that it has the 4. You both have the 4 energy of like the creating community and connection, but that's a little bit more veiled energy for the entity for past lives in the
Okay.
divine.
Okay.
But let's go a little bit further. So, what does past lives in
Whoa.
the divine want to share? So I picked out some things here that I thought would be important for you to understand what it is that past lives in the divine and the chart is saying that it's here to like offer the world and how it wants to show up in the world. And so it wants to share inspiration and ideas and its voice and its identity and its sense of value. I mean, those are all like the defined centers here.
Okay.
The conscious sun is in gate 33, which is right here.
Oh, wow.
And it is the gate of retelling. So yeah. So it's retelling stories with an empowered perspective. It's about transmuting pain into power. It's about how do we take the stories that we've been given and tell them in a way that expands possibility, that, helps people shift their mindsets to think that, something better is possible for them. I mean, how perfect is that?
Yeah.
Right?
That's so wild.
It is wild. It's really wild. So that's the conscious sun gate. That's what it's really here to share. That's the superpower, is retelling stories. The south node, I chose the south node because that's sort of like the first part of the life. I mean, it's weird because it's like, well, you can't really, what am I going to say, like 40 or 45, right? Whatever, like whenever the switches into the north node. So we'll just talk about it as being an early, business, early
Mhm.
on. One of the things that it has to offer in this like time of its life is gate 54. That's here. And you actually have it in both places, both conscious energy and veiled energy. Gate 54
Okay.
is down here. Gate 54 is the gate of divine inspiration. So it's really about kind of nurturing and like incubating divine inspiration and divine ideas by like laying the foundation to bring those ideas into being, so that when the opportunities arise, you're ready to say yes. So I think it's interesting because like it can serve as a place for like the divine muse to sort of work through ideas, to kind of like hold that space of like the building that needs to happen on the early end of like inspiration coming in. So Mercury, when we talk about Mercury, we're talking about what you're here to share, what it wants to share, what it wants to speak on, what topics does it want to talk about. Gate 62 is right here off the throat. And it's about being attuned to what is necessary to be prepared, trusting that you will know the next right step. So this would be and I would recommend, as you kind of integrate this, that you go and like read some of this stuff about the gates so that you can see some different energy interpretations, to
Okay.
give you some ideas about what types of things like past lives and the divine wants to share with the world and what it wants to talk about, and how that might play into how you move forward or not
Okay.
with continuing the podcast. But being attuned to what's necessary to be prepared, like knowing, what their next right step is, and then trusting that you will know, and you don't need to freak out about it. And gate 42 is finishing what needs to be brought to completion. How do you bring things to completion? How do you generate the energy to like finish something so that something new can be started? So that's Mercury. And then the incarnation cross for past lives in the divine. This is the overarching life purpose, is the racks of four ways. In there are the interpretations on this, the racks of four ways, are very different depending on who you read. But I liked Karen's interpretation, and that's what I have here. It's to share the power of the narrative, to help other people see the patterns in old stories so that they can be shifted into something more empowering, into something bigger for them, to help people find their value and their worth.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what's your reaction to learning a little bit about that?
So, the part gate 62 where it's like trust that you'll know the next right step. whenever I get messages like that, I'm like, fuck off. But, but, um, so my plan right in this moment for 2024 PLD, which could change, was to kind of put it on like set it and forget it,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that in my business, let me make this a shorter story. Essentially, what I want to do with past lives and the divine is make it all, just bring it back to past life regression, to soul memories, to experiencing other lifetimes and what we can get from that. And really go back to like the reason I started it, and then make it like I share one PLR, whether it's mine, whether it's a client's with their permission, of course, or whether it's a hypnotic journey to help people go on, where it's like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to create 12 episodes for the year. I'm going to set them up to release. I'm going to promote them. But besides that, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not going to have interviews. I'm not going to try to think of new creative episodes that'll make me feel excited again. I think with PLD, I was so excited, and I don't want to say I'm evolving beyond it. It's still my interest. I'm so passionate about it. I still see the value in it. I still use past life regression personally, as a client and of course the facilitator. But it's almost like, this is kind of crazy because I'm being shown like where I'm at right now with PLD, and where I have admired other people, where it's like essentially I want to set it and forget it, engage with it when it's fun, engage with it when I get feedback, but not invest so much thinking into it. And how can I grow it? And why does it seem like it's plateaued? Like coming back after the summer, usually when I do that, there's a big bump in like people who are interested and downloads. And this one, it's just flat, which is also telling me like, focus on something else in my business. When I focus on something and it's just flat, doesn't change. It only changes when I like abandon it, think about something else, shift gears. And so that's what I'm seeing with PLD. And even just the divine inspiration, the muse, the retelling of the story, finishing, bringing things to completion. Even in that, I feel like the energy in that is very PLD, where I'm at right now, and kind of like getting back to the bare bones of what it is, and allowing that to like promote the stuff in the shop, promote kinship, promote hypnotic arts. And then I allow that free time to like let whatever it is that's next bubble up, because I can feel it. I've talked to you about it. Like there's parts of it that's like, oh, I want it to feel this way, or I want this to be a part of it, or these kind of conversations. And it's almost like this to me is like affirming what I already thought, like where I'm at right now with PLD and like my vision for it, which I love that validation, because the idea of like, trust what you know, Gina, doesn't always motivate me. Like when I'm alone and I get that message, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right. But I'm just making it
up. Yeah. So that's very validating, and like, okay, yes. And just, it's always good when I can see that I've already been trusting myself and that I am on that path. And so this is very validating in what I'm already thinking. So yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
So there's more. So what does PLD need to thrive?
Whoa.
The ability to create in response. So PLD, like you, needs to respond to external cues. Like this isn't, I don't know if you've been just sort of pushing, like, you know, content, like you come up with the idea and you just do it. It wants to create in response to make sure that the stars are aligned for the content that's going to be provided, or for the way in which it's going to show up in the world is right on time, is, you know, is relevant, is like a good use of energy, is, you know, creating in response to external cues, right? That's part of it.
Yeah.
Time to pull back and integrate. You just talked about this, like the set it and forget it. this is the second line profile. The second line profile needs periods of alone time, needs periods of dormancy to integrate and to understand like kind of what the experiences are. And so, how this works with you and your energy and how it as an entity like gets time to pull back and what does that even mean? Like that's for you to figure out.
Okay.
But what I would suggest is that like what it says to me is that like it does need periods of downtime. Like you cannot just like go. Like there does need to be some space, right, for things to like settle and then to re-engage in the creative process. So it wants to serve as a foundation for community, like, and I think it's already doing that, right? But
Yep.
that's part of its
Totally.
purpose as well. The ability to communicate divine inspiration in right timing is something that, yeah, it wants to be able to do. And the drivers, which is the moon here, these are kind of like what drives and motivates PLD. It includes gate 7, the gate of collaboration, which is your north node, and using thought and voice to expand potentials in gate 17
Wow.
up here.
My God.
Yeah. So I have one more slide.
Okay.
But I'm thinking is like, it does have something to offer, and maybe some of these ideas will spark some inspiration for you about ways you can use the platform and use the podcast to serve both you and your mission and the mission of PLD.
Yeah. Oh,
So
hell yeah. Okay, cool.
we talk about this slide is like what do you have to offer each other, like where's there like good synergy between the two of you, and the energy to show up as a leader with wisdom from a heart-centered perspective.
Oh,
So you have gate 7, it has the whole channel 731, and so this is you through your connection to PLD, you can experience this full energy of 731, which is showing up and like with your wisdom and like as a democratic leader, right? As someone who's been selected like from a really loving and like caring place that seeks to take care of the people around you.
yeah, I feel that. I feel
Mm-hmm.
that. Like when I like date someone new, they're like, "Oh, you have a podcast." And sometimes they'll be like, "I'm going to listen to it." And I'm like, "Do not listen to that podcast." Like it is I am so unguarded and like compassionate and heart-centered, and it's so different from the vibe I bring when I'm dating, which is probably part of the problem that I'm having. But it's like like the incongruency has been just like really shown to me over the past few months. And so I'm thankful though. Like also what it shows me is like it really illuminates how PLD has allowed me to show up as a leader
Mm-hmm.
in that like unguarded, heart-centered perspective. And it
Mm-hmm.
was such a safe space, right? Like I'm recording alone in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, so that I feel that and I'm thankful. That's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the many reasons I'm thankful to PLD.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, right? Like what a good example of how like it is serving you, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that there is a difference in how you operate in the world depending on whether you're just showing up as you or you're showing up with PLD.
Yeah.
So there's also like a solid sense of self and identity, which we talked about a little bit already. A way to share stories and empower others through listening and retelling, expanding possibility thinking, sharing the power of the narrative. I mean, the thing
Oh
that's
my God.
yeah, so the thing that's super interesting. Let me flip back so you can see the combination. So through the two of you together, you have 13 the gate 1330 or channel 1333 and then 5611. All of this is storytelling. So gate 13 is the listener and you are bringing gate 13. Gate 33 is retelling of the stories, deciding which stories to tell,
Oh my
like
God.
what needs to be let go, how do you tell the stories? That's gate 33, and that's past lives in the divine. Gate 56 is the storyteller also. It's the narrative, it's using metaphor. It's like, how do you explain? How do you tell the story? So all of this, and then gate 11, is also sort of like storytelling related. It's about like possibility thinking. It's about how do you use the stories and the narrative to create an idea of something bigger and better so that
Yeah.
people can shift their mindset. So that, like, the big storytelling energy, I mean, you, like, again, you cannot make this up. Like, it's
It's
so
so crazy.
perfectly created in exactly the right moment so that all of this would be here for you to experience, and for you to help PLD experience and offer to the world. So that's a really big deal. And then the last one here is the other channel that gets kind of filled in with PLD is this 5027. You have the 50 as your conscious sun. We talked about that already. Gate 27 brings an element of accountability. It's like, it is caring, it is nurturing, right, as part of gate 50, but it's bringing this like accountability piece to it of like, whose is this to take care of? Is it mine? Is it yours? Like, are you accountable for the things that you need to be accountable for? So that's a nice balance energy there too,
Yeah.
within PLD.
Yeah. Wow. For whatever reason, for the past whatever, however many slides of PLD, like I've just, every bullet point that you start talking through, I just get like full body chills.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it really right here in this moment makes me just, before I was feeling kind of resigned, like I don't know what to do with PLD. I'm just going to bring it back to the PLRs, share it once a month. It'll take me 5 hours of work a month to do whatever. And kind of this resigned feeling.
Mhm.
And the plan hasn't changed, but just going through this makes me feel like I'm not resigning. I'm getting back to like exactly what this thing is about.
Mhm.
And how beautiful when you can do that and it's less work.
Mhm.
Like, who doesn't
Yeah.
want that? So and it will give me even more time and opportunity. Something always is about to bubble up. I'm just
Mhm.
someone who, I can trust the fact at this point through different 22 years of entrepreneurship to be like, to trust the fact that when a wave is receding, another wave always comes in.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, the other thing too, when you're talking about feeling like resigned or feeling like that this is somehow like negative in some way, or I don't know, like this, that energy of like it not being like exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it's like, oh well, I don't know what to do, so we're just gonna like um that, like, actually, like, the podcast does need downtime, like,
Yeah.
does want to like integrate, does want to take time, and that when it takes the time and when it pulls its energy back a little bit, that actually that is like for a reason and is intentional and is not about like, oh well, I don't know what to do now, or whatever, is an ending or whatever. It's like, no, this is an integration period, and like
Oh,
it still has a lot to offer, and there's a huge platform here, and it has a lot that it wants to share, and you two together are a really powerful combination of storytelling and shifting narratives and mindsets and possibility thinking, and like, but you don't always have to be doing that, like, always, right? And it
right.
doesn't want to
Yeah.
do it always. Like, it needs time to pull back, to like reset, like you're talking about now.
Yeah. This is great. Like, Jill,
I know.
this is amazing.
I'm telling you, I went through this and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if she's planning on like abandoning this thing, but she can't do it. She can't
Well, I
abandon
feel
it.
like I don't even, I just am like, it's honestly, I feel so right here in this conversation. I've never drawn this line before, But I feel the same way I do and did about Alex, where it's like, the way I'm engaging in this needs to change. I don't want you to go away, but there's a better fit and I can feel it. And all I know is like, I can't do what I've been doing. And so even in that idea, how can I change my relation to it? Not putting it on the back burner, but like just bringing it back to the original, sharing past life stories and that sort of thing. And like honoring it for what it is and just being like, who knows where it'll go? That's different for me. I've never had a relationship like I have with Alex where we finessed it and we transitioned it. Like, we are continuing to learn and grow individually. And so, of course, our relationship is going to change. And the same is true with PLD. Like, I'm learning and growing. And so my relationship to this entity that I work with, I really don't even like, yes, it looks like I am putting together PLD, but like in my brain, in my body, it is very much an entity that wants things and we work together. And I've never had a work project that feels like an entity that I'm working with. It's always felt like this is mine and it's super personal.
Do the things that are important to it and do the things that are important to you. And like, you don't have you can wait and see like what inspiration comes to you, and hopefully like seeing some of this stuff, learning a little bit more about what it wants to offer the world will give you more inspiration of how it can show up in the world and how you can show up within it. So
we are not who we used to be together. Where are we going to go together next? I don't feel like my relationship with Alex is over. I don't feel like my relationship with PLD is over, but it's like I've never thought of those two as so similar. But in this moment, whoa, yes, these are the rules. Yes, people are like, I'm not into it, so I quit. I'm starting something new. And if that doesn't feel right, what rules am I going to break? That's okay. I can still have this and not have it be like my number one focus. It's still valuable. And it could be someday again. Like, who knows? To be okay with ebbing and flowing, pulsing in and out of,
Yep. Totally. And so just the last slide here is just to use your strategy and authority to determine the next step for you, whether it's over, whether you're going back to something new, whatever, or doing a new idea, bringing something new, like always. And the strategy is the same for the business. So wait for your external cue, check in with your sacral, your yes or no in the moment is correct for you.
It's amazing what medicine validation is. I think that we all doubt ourselves, for a million reasons. And so to get that validation, well, there was a lot of clarity involved in that too, but just like validation of things I was already thinking, very valuable. Yeah.
Good.
That is our episode. And with the information that I got and the validation that I got in this session and in a couple other trusted sources, just as I continue my search, I've got some pretty fun things, I think, planned for the PLD community in 2024. So I am going to be posting one podcast episode a month, but there are going to be chances for you as a podcast listener to be able to join in maybe some free group hypnotic journeys. I'll let you know more about what I have in store for us next year in a podcast episode in the next couple weeks. So until then, take anything from this episode that makes your load feel lighter and just leave the rest.